Whether you call it the arm cannon, the laser blaster, or even the pea shooter, the Buster is a weapon intrinsically tied to the identity and style of the entire Mega Man franchise. Being the primary weapon of Mega Man, it is only natural that this awesome piece of futuristic weaponry would appear in the very first game in the series, and define an entire category of weapons used countless times across every single iteration of Mega Man. Typically, a Buster is the default weapon of any given Robot Master, Reploid, or even a Biometal, or a Carbon decked out in digging gear. They are most often arm-mounted, replacing the forearm section of the user with some form of energy-based cannon, though shot types, firing modes, and other specifics tend to change from user to user, and in some cases may even be tuned to fit the user's specific needs. In some rare cases, however, a Buster weapon may even take the form of a handgun or pistol, which means that for a weapon to be considered a Buster, simply being an egg-shaped arm-mounted projectile weapon may not be enough, but we will get to that soon enough. Generally speaking, Busters seem to be able to fire a certain number of shots before a short cooldown period, visualized in-game by needing the shots to travel across the screen first before a new one may be fired, typically in bursts of 3, though this may sometimes be upgraded to 5 or more depending on the user, Buster parts equipped, or upgrades installed. In some cases, Busters may even be used with a variety of weapon energy types, which may alter the kind of shots fired from the Buster, allowing for a versatile array of projectiles, bombs, mines, tools, and in some cases, melee weapons, to be employed via the Buster technology. But how does one work? Well, for that, we should probably start with the first one we are exposed to in the series, Rock's Mega Buster. To start with, Rock, otherwise known as Mega Man, uses an arm-mounted cannon-style weapon called the Mega Buster. If Mega Man follows the naming convention of other Robot Masters, who seem to be named after the kind of weapons that they use, or some other defining trait about them, it is only natural that if Rock's primary weapon is the Mega Buster, it follows that his name would be Mega Man. Rock's Mega Buster, like many Busters, is a replacement for Rock's forearm, able to transform either his left or right arm into the weapon in question. In some iterations, Rock's hand slides into his forearm and a barrel or nozzle of some kind pops out in its place, which is the part of the Buster which releases the projectile when fired. Along the top, a panel is revealed with multiple yellow squares, forming what appears to be an energy bar. Different media portrays the usage of this part of the Buster differently for different purposes, but most media seems to be of the consensus that it is a power readout for Rock's internal energy. In Rock's case, the Buster is tied directly to his solar-powered core, allowing him to fire off bullets of concentrated solar energy. These solar bullets pack a powerful punch but dissipate quickly upon impact with a target. Later revisions to the Mega Buster would allow it to charge up Rock's internal energy and release it in the form of a larger blast of energy, like that of a giant cannonball to deal devastating damage to targets. These blasts tend to continue flying through the air until they strike a target that they cannot destroy, allowing Rock to destroy rows of enemies if he lines up his shots correctly. These charged shots have been shown to produce some level of recoil as well, demonstrating the power behind them. But solar bullets are not the only thing Rock can shoot from his Buster. When equipped with a special weapon obtained from fallen boss characters, Rock is able to utilize weapon energy to change the function of his Mega Buster. For instance, when using the Ice Slasher weapon obtained from Iceman, Rock's Mega Buster produces a sharp wedge of ice, sharpened to a blade, which is ejected from the tip of the Buster at high speeds, providing a slightly larger and more damaging shot than his usual Mega Buster shots. The way this is achieved is through Rock's variable weapon system, which is capable of translating the boss weapon data into something that his Buster can understand, and by using the appropriate weapon energy, can reconfigure his Buster to draw upon that energy instead of his own internal solar energy. As the energy travels through his body down his arm and to the tip of the Buster, the gem inside the barrel of his Buster materializes the energy into the appropriate projectile, in this case, Ice Slasher, I've already given you the full rundown of what the gem inside of Rock's Buster does when he fires off a shot, and how the weapon energy and boss weapon data changes the functionality of the Mega Buster in my other video, What Exactly Are Gems, so I won't dwell on that topic too much. The short version is that Rock's Buster draws upon the weapon energy as ammunition, the Buster converts that energy into the desired projectile, and the gem on the end of the Buster materializes that projectile and fires it off. Though I am using the word projectile for easy shorthand, do keep in mind that not every weapon is a projectile weapon. The Mega Buster has been used even as a sword, such as the case with the weapon Flame Sword. Just as I explained a moment ago, the Buster draws upon the Flame Sword weapon energy and converts it into the appropriate projectile, which materializes on the end of the Buster. In this case, rather than firing off a blast of fire, it instead creates a rigid pillar of fire, allowing Rock to swing his Buster like a sword to great effect. Though not all of Rock's weapons require the usage of his Buster to use, many of them do, and the majority of them are simply new forms of projectiles which materialize on the end of the Buster's internal gem and are fired off, allowing the projectile to take over and do the rest. Besides Rock's Mega Buster, there are many other characters who all employ Busters as their primary weapons, including Protoman, Bass, X, Zero, Fireman, Storm Eagle, and many others. Chances are, if a character has an egg-shaped weapon of some kind replacing their forearm, it's probably a Buster. Bass, however, is an interesting case, as his Buster seems capable of typical charged shots just like Rock, but later iterations of his Buster appear to be rapid-fire in nature, allowing him to pile on damage in large quantities. While Rock eventually gained the ability to charge his shots in addition to his normal shots, and I could be mistaken about this, Bass seems to be the only case I am aware of where a character's Buster completely changed firing modes. Bass just really wants to separate himself from Mega Man, I guess. Astute observers will note that unlike Rock, Bass's shots appear to impact walls, while Rock's pass right through them. However, I believe that this can be chalked up to a gameplay element and not an actual in-universe phenomenon, as the consistency of when the solidity of walls is respected seems to change from game to game, even well into the X series and beyond. What these two have in common, however, is that they are both equipped with a variable weapon system of sorts which allows them to adapt boss weapons into their arsenal. However, not all Busters have the same functionality. In fact, most Busters only have one kind of firing mode. For instance, Fireman is equipped with 2 Busters for each of his arms, and only seems to be able to shoot his trademark Firestorm attack, which creates a large projectile made out of fire before it launches forward at a high speed. Furthermore, while Rock has the convenience of swapping between Buster and Hand mode, it appears Fireman's arms are permanently in their Buster mode. Sorry, buddy. You may have been the first, but you certainly won't be the last. Join the club, why don't you? While I'm on the subject of permanent Busters, some sources I found state that Protoman's Buster is also permanently in Buster mode, and does not have an arm mode like Rock's. However, this was an early piece of information which seems to be undone by artwork made for Mega Man 7, which depicts Protoman holding his helmet with both hands. Unless we are to believe he unequips it and swaps it with a spare arm that he has laying around. I'll leave that one up to you to decide. Meanwhile, Sniper Joes of many varieties come with Buster arms, either firing off a single solar bullet or even a machine gun volley of shots depending on the model of Sniper Joe. Even Storm Eagle of the X series comes equipped with a Buster on his arm, which only seems capable of producing highly concentrated vortexes from it. His Storm Tornado is used to blow enemies away with intense force. Flame Mammoth even comes with a Buster on his arm which releases a fireball with the intent to ignite his trunk-thrown oil slicks. But while we are in the X series, we can't forget the other famous Buster user, Mega Man X. X comes equipped with the Mega Buster Mark 17, otherwise known as the X Buster, which is his default weapon. Like Rock before him, X is capable of utilizing his variable weapon system to convert boss weapons into a similar weapon that he is able to then use with weapon energy as ammunition. Functionally identical to the Mega Buster that came before his, X is of course the latest and greatest in Buster technology. When upgraded via the help of the Dr. Light capsules, X's Buster gains the ability to charge up boss weapons and release even more devastating variety of attacks. The difference in weapons, charged versus uncharged, often vary wildly in damage output and usefulness. For instance, Shotgun Ice, obtained from Chill Penguin, produces a chunk of spiked ice, which shatters and sends frozen shrapnel in all directions away from the surface it impacted. However, when charged, X produces an ice sled, which he may jump on top of, that then begins moving forward under its own power to ram into enemies or provide a much needed step up for X to leap from to reach higher places. Meanwhile, the homing torpedo goes from a simple 2-shot missile weapon to a volley of 5 fish-shaped missiles all at once, illustrating the difference in simplicity or complexity of X's obtained weapons when charged or not. Similar to his younger brother, X, Rock also gained the ability to use more powerful versions of boss weapons through the use of the Power Gear when he is equipped with the Double Gear system. The difference being that the Power Gear will overheat Rock's systems if used for too long, while X is without this limitation. In both cases, however, these upgrades to their busters, either through the Double Gear or Light Capsule upgrade, seem to unlock additional functionality to their busters outside of their stock firing modes. One last variation of Buster upgrade I'd like to bring to your attention is the ability to fire 2 charge shots. As many of you already know, Rock, X, and almost every other Buster using character has the ability to transform both of their arms into a Buster. What this means is that while each user might have a preferred arm that they use for their Buster, for instance, Rock is left-handed, while X is usually right-handed, both arms may in fact be transformed into a Buster to suit their needs. Generally, we only ever see them use one arm at a time, but in some very special cases, it has been shown that these users may sometimes use both of their arms as a Buster, either simultaneously or in quick succession. Starting with Rock in Super Adventure Rockman, while up against the overwhelming might of Ra Moon, Rock is left with no choice but to employ the Double Mega Buster. Rock transforms both of his arms into a Buster, charges up, and releases 2 charge shots simultaneously for an extremely devastating blast, the result of which nearly kills Rock, as it surely drains him of all of his energy at once, leaving him with no way to recharge it on the spot. Whether this form of charge shot is greater than or equal to the destructive power of 2 charge shots combined is unknown, but the toll it takes on his body to release so much energy all at once makes its power evident. As a side note, it is sometimes shown that Proto Man can fire off a constant volley of charge shots as his default firing mode, without even charging up, but this seems to be relegated to Mega Man powered up alone. Other times, where Proto Man is seen using his Buster, it appears to function similarly to Mega Man. Although, on occasion, he has been seen overcharging his Buster to release the Big Bang Strike, capable of destroying King's impenetrable shield. Perhaps this is the result of his nuclear core, despite the fact that it leaves Proto Man weakened and tired after using this attack. Perhaps as a result of his faulty core always leaking energy. As a result, Proto Man is rarely seen fighting in battle, as fighting to his fullest, while powerful, shortens his lifespan every single time he does. Perhaps it is a good thing only Rock has ever used the double charge shot, since he can safely recover his energy later, unlike his shades-wearing brother. However, it would seem Double Buster technology has improved in the 100 years since Rock's time, as through the use of Light Capsule upgrades, Mega Man X is also able to perform a double charge shot, but in a different way. Likewise, Zero from X2 onwards also seems capable of performing this feat. Essentially, X and Zero, when equipped with the appropriate upgrades or loadout, are able to charge up their busters beyond the normal max level of charge shot. When released, X and Zero can fire off one charge shot with one arm, and then quickly switch to the other arm to release a second follow-up shot. For Zero, this results in him releasing 2 of his normal max level charge shots in quick succession, whereas for X, the shots he fires back-to-back are different depending on if he is wearing the second or third armors. In X4, he even gains an optional Buster upgrade which allows him to store 4 fully charged shots in his busters to use whenever he sees fit, or an alternative Buster upgrade which grants him the powerful Plasma Shot. However, while using the 4 charge shot version of the Buster upgrade, X simply fires all 4 from one arm, and doesn't perform the alternating punch motion seen in X2 and X3. So while this may not be an evolution of the double charge shots we've seen so far, I felt like it was worth noting. As an honorable mention, I'd like to also bring attention to some additional varieties of Buster shots. In Mega Man 8, Rock is able to equip a variety of shots which replace his stock charge shot. These include the piercing laser shot, the arrow shot, and the rapid fire shot. The laser shot fires off a long beam of energy, which deals incredible damage along a narrow path and goes through absolutely everything, even shielded enemies. The arrow shot, which is my personal favorite, fires off some sort of energy arrow, which then explodes into a wide spread of energy balls that briefly shoot back and then forward, fanning out. And the rapid fire shot, possibly the least flashy of the three, fires off a constant stream of regular Buster shots for as long as you were holding a charge shot. One last honorable mention I'd like to bring to your attention are the various shot types granted to X by many of his armors. Almost every armor gives X a new form of charge shot, ranging from the powerful Spiral Crush from X1 to the devastating laser beam shot of the Icarus armor in X8. Not to mention the Blade armor, which has the ability to turn the tip of X's Buster into a beam saber emitter, creating a sort of broadsword beam, rather than the katana-like blade of Zero. It goes to show that as long as you configure the Buster properly, almost any kind of projectile, blade, or object can be materialized from the gem within a Buster. Moving further ahead through the timeline, however, we arrive in the Mega Man Zero and ZX series. Notably, Zero in Mega Man Zero 1 through 4 does not use a typical arm-mounted Buster. Instead, he is equipped with something called the Buster Shot, which appears to be some form of handgun or pistol. In this series, the Buster Shot is picked up by Zero after Milan, one of Ciel's Resistance team members, was shot down by Pantheons. Being that it is not part of the user's body, it can be passed from person to person, just as Zero picked it up from Milan. The exact origins of this handgun are a topic for another video, but in essence, the Buster Shot works identically to the way Busters have worked since the X series. Zero is able to fire 3 shots and may even charge up his energy to release in the form of various levels of charge shot. This implies that the power source for the Buster Shot draws upon the internal energy of the user, despite not being part of their body. The method through which this is accomplished is not exactly explained very well, but if I had to guess, it's through some sort of direct contact with the grip of the Buster Shot. Notably, the Buster Shot is not seen charging when in the hands of Milan or the other Resistance soldiers, instead relying on burst fire modes. Whether this is because they lack the energy required to charge it up, or simply due to personal preference, is unknown. But given that they are rebelling to solve the energy crisis happening in this time period, it is very likely they simply do not have the spare energy to channel into their Buster Shots, relying instead on normal burst fire modes. Another unique feature of the Buster Shot is that it does not seem to be capable of assimilating boss weapons upon defeat of a boss character. Instead, Zero may equip elemental chips which imbue the weapon with fire, electricity, or ice-based properties. This would mean that the variable weapon system and technique learning systems of the past are more directly tied to the Buster and Z-Saber, whereas the Buster Shot seems to be a more generic weapon anyone can pick up and use. Interestingly, the Buster Shot seems to have a special function made specifically for Zero's Z-Saber. By inserting the saber handle into the top slide of the Buster Shot, this allows Zero to channel his saber's energy into each shot. How and why a generic weapon the Resistance soldiers are using are all seemingly compatible with what I would assume to be a unique and one-of-a-kind Z-Saber is beyond me, but nitpicking the writing decisions of the Zero series can be saved for another video. Before I finish talking about the Z-Saber, of note is that in the Zero official complete works, notes regarding the Z-Saber state that it has been upgraded with X-Buster technology, which is what allows it to be charged up to release the charged Z-Saber attacks Zero obtains in the Zero series. What exactly this means is not clear, but it could imply that a Buster is defined by whether or not it is powered by the user's own energy or not, as this upgrade with Buster technology is what allows Zero to charge up his saber. This definition of a weapon powered by the user's own energy core would seem to work for both arm-mounted Busters, which are part of the user's body, as well as the Buster Shot, which also seems to draw upon the user's own energy somehow. There are exceptions to this rule, however, so I'm hesitant to apply this definition with certainty, but it does seem to point us in the right direction for what is considered a buster or not. Speaking of busters, I am sure many of you were missing the old-style arm-mounted variation of buster after playing through the Zero series, but you'll be happy to know that the Buster Shot style busters are not the only kind. We actually see several examples of arm-mounted busters as used by the Pantheon enemies and even Copy X himself. I'm happy to know they haven't gone completely out of style yet. Earlier, I had mentioned that the variable weapon system and technique systems of the X series seem to be missing in the Zero series in favor of elemental chips to augment Z-Saber and Buster charged attacks. But that's not entirely true. It would seem that through the use of EX skills and other various upgrades obtained throughout the series, the Buster Shot and even Z-Saber are still capable of producing a variety of projectiles and special blades when used with EX skills, similar to boss weapons, though not usually directly adapted from a particular boss attack. The point being, the ability for busters to adapt and fire off different projectiles when equipped properly still holds true, even 200 years after Mega Man's very first outing in 200X. The only difference now seems to be the lack or need for weapon energy. Perhaps in those 200 years, the technology to draw upon a user's internal energy supply instead of externally acquired weapon energy has been perfected. After all, in Mega Man X4, the 4th Armor's helmet upgrade allows X to use special weapons infinitely, presumably drawing upon his very own internal energy supply, just like when he uses his own buster. This could possibly be an improvement upon that ability. Moving ahead to the ZX series, there's not too much more to add, except that now the Buster Shot has completely combined with the Z-Saber while using Model ZX. The handgun-like Buster Shot can now be transformed into a Saber mode, seamlessly switching between them on the fly. But fear not, our fan-favorite arm-mounted busters are still around. While using Model X on its own, instead of a Buster Shot style buster, Vent or Ale gain access to an absolutely beefy arm cannon. This special X-Buster variant even comes with the ability to fire off double charge shots, just like X did in Mega Man X2. Some have even argued that this ability makes it far more powerful model than Model ZX, as ZX can only release one charged shot or one charged saber attack at a time, while Model X can easily let the damage fly from a distance, keeping you safe from most enemies. The ability to slam a target with not one, but two charged attacks back to back is just as devastating as it was back in X2. Moving ahead once again, it would seem that Buster technology never quite went away. Even thousands of years into the future of the Mega Man timeline, we arrive in Mega Man Legends, where we find our hero, Rock Walnut, using, you guessed it, a buster on his arm. In this time period, Rock is seemingly what is called a carbon. His true origins are much more complex, but for all intents and purposes, let's leave it at that for now. As such, he has a normal-looking casual body for when he goes about his day-to-day activities, as well as a set of digger's armor that he uses when diving into the dangerous ruins, where he must fight Reaver bots and other obstacles that guard the valuable treasures that he and Roll Casket rely on to make a living. Interestingly, this version of the Mega Buster gives the user a surprising amount of control over its attributes, such as power, range, rate of fire, and the amount of shots Rock can fire before needing to pause to allow for more shots. As all before, it seems to draw upon his own internal energy reserves as an ammunition source. Seemingly returning back to basics, Walnut's Buster is incapable of charging up, but with the amount of damage his fully powered up Buster can do, you'll wonder why he ever needed such an ability. By equipping items simply known as Buster Parts, Walnut can tune his Buster to suit his needs. Usually, there are only 2 Buster Part slots available, later upgrading to 3, which allows you to alter the way his Buster functions. For instance, you can equip parts which maximize damage output, allowing Walnut to fire humongous shots of energy. You can also upgrade his rapid fire capabilities, turning the Buster into a machine gun style weapon. You might even want to upgrade his range to allow him to bullseye targets from great distances, or maybe you prefer a non-stop volley of shots that never lets up. Each of these traits can be tuned depending on which parts you pick, usually forcing you to choose a careful balance between one stat or another. which means you can't have a max power buster with long range and rapid fire and doesn't have any cooldown between shots. That is, unless of course, you find the endgame level hidden buster parts, which effectively makes you unstoppable. But I digress. Much like all of the busters which came before, it would seem that this buster replaces Rock's left forearm with an energy cannon style weapon. How it functions is ultimately left up to you. A smart and experienced digger will try to bring a special weapon that complements their buster loadout, allowing you to lay down damage one way while allowing you to rely on your special weapon for other situations. Curiously, Volnut's buster parts may even be switched out on the fly while he is out in the field, suggesting that buster parts may be modular in design and easily swappable. Interestingly still, buster parts found in the ancient ruins around the world all seem to work in his buster without any modification. This may imply that either all busters in this time period are based off the same technology, and anyone can use them, or it might imply that Volnut is special somehow, already able to interface with these seemingly randomly strewn about parts and modules. Strangely, some of Volnut's weapons seem to make use of the word buster in their name, such as the active buster, the buster cannon, the spread buster, and more. However, only some of these appear to fire energy-based shots, while others fire solid projectiles such as missiles and bombs. Could it be that the word buster in this context refers to the fact that it is a replacement for Volnut's arm, and is in fact an arm-mounted projectile weapon of some kind? Maybe it has more to do with the arm replacement aspect than it does the kind of shots that it fires, but that leads me to my next point. Other such special weapons actually use the word arm in place of buster, such as with the blade arm or the vacuum arm or even the grenade arm. Though if we are being fair, the grenade arm is really just Volnut's usual arm, just holding and throwing grenades. I wonder what it is about each weapon which either makes them a buster or an arm weapon. Perhaps buster refers to the fact that it is an arm-mounted weapon which shoots something, such as the active buster and buster cannon. Even though one is firing missiles and the other fires an energy shot, they are both considered busters. And perhaps arm weapons refer to the fact that they are used not by shooting something from them, but rather the actual motion of the arm to function. For instance, the blade arm and grenade arm both require you to swing or move your arm for them to function. You can't swing a sword or throw a grenade without moving your arm. That is how they function. Whereas a buster doesn't really require the motion of your arm in order to fire it. Basically, arm weapons require the motion of your arms to use, and busters you just aim and shoot. More research into this topic is definitely on my to-do list. Before I wrap up the section on Legends, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the best weapon in the game, the Shining Laser. The Shining Laser is a special weapon which fires off a concentrated beam of laser energy which positively melts through enemies like they aren't even there. Final bosses are taken down in seconds with a fully upgraded Shining Laser, a testament to its fearsome power. And yet, what is one of the parts required for building it? None other than the X-Buster, of course. The logistics of how and why you can find an X-Buster in the far-off future of the Legends time period is a topic for another video, but it goes to show you how powerful a Buster-type weapon really is. It can be modified into the all-powerful Shining Laser, a weapon of such intimidating power that it shreds even the second-in-command of Elysium, Mother Unit Serra, to pieces. For this next Buster, I will be dipping my toe attackers into an alternate world from the one that I usually cover, and that is the Battle Network and Star Force series. Well, while I hate to let you guys down since I'm finally talking about this, I don't really have too much to say about these. Just like in all of the games that came before them, it would appear that the Mega Busters used by Mega Man EXE and Geostellar are once again arm-mounted cannon-style weapons which draw upon the energy of the user to fire off various kinds of shots, and can be charged up or fired rapidly depending on your setup. Similar to the Legend series, Mega Man EXE can have his stats rearranged to alter the functionality of his Mega Buster, either going for higher damage, speed, or charge time, allowing for his Buster functionality to work more in sync with your playstyle. But other than that, Busters in these series are pretty much exactly what you would expect, even though their form factor may have changed a bit. I mean, really, that guy has like a space dragon on his arm or something. I think that about wraps up this topic. I'm not sure what more there is to say on it. In general, busters are arm-mounted cannon-style weapons which draw upon the internal energy of the user to be fired, with a shot typically coinciding with the user's own energy source, or can be configured to fire off specific kinds of projectiles, such as wind, fire, ice, and other special kinds of shots. Some busters fire off singular shots, others can be charged up to release larger blasts of energy, and some can even be configured to fire in a constant stream of rapid-fire shots. They can produce everything from shurikens to sword blades. These miracle weapons can be suited to do anything the user might need, as well as come in nearly any shape or size, sometimes even appearing on the arms of right armors. Truly, the versatility of Buster technology never ceases to amaze, and that is likely why it is the trademark weapon of the Mega Man series. Join me next time as we take a look at the second most recognizable weapon in the Mega Man universe, the Beam Saber, and explore the ins and outs of how this powerful technology evolves through the timeline. I'll see you then. This is Twitch, signing out.